After Mom passed away, Dad remarried. My new stepmother declared that only one of us sisters could stay in the house. My sister was sent to a destitute mountain region. Unable to endure the harsh farm labor under the sun and wind, she fled into the night, but on the road, she was abducted by traffickers and taken to another remote mountain. Locked in a cellar, she was treated like a breeding sow, forced to bear child after child. Meanwhile, my life as the privileged heiress continued smoothly. I graduated from a prestigious university and eventually became engaged to the wealthiest man in the country. Consumed by bitterness after her rescue, my sister sought revenge. At my wedding, she stabbed me to death. When I woke up again, my sister was pulling out all the stops to stay in that wealthy family. I knew then, she had been reborn too. The night before I was sent to the mountains, my sister looked down on me and sneered. "It's your turn now to be the lowly brood." So I gave a cold, bitter laugh. What she saw as a paradise of riches was, in truth, a living hell far more terrifying than the mountains. I died on the altar at my own wedding. A spray of blood stark against the shower of falling petals. A knife was buried deep in my heart. I fell onto my back, my eyes staring sightlessly as the light faded from them. Blood soaked into the white wedding gown. In an instant, the joyous celebration turned into a scene of horror, filled with screams. Song Lan let out a maniacal laugh and spat at me. "Song Ying, this is all your fault. If I had been the one who stayed, I would be just like you. This wedding of the century should have been mine. Go to hell, you bitch." Still unsatisfied, she viciously pulled out the knife and plunged it into other parts of my body, again and again. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day, 5 years ago, when my father decided to send one of us, my sister or me, away. On the evening after our mother's funeral, my father called my sister and me in. Standing beside him was Auntie Ching, who looked exceptionally kind. Auntie Ching dabbed at her moist eyes with a sigh. "I know you both must want to stay, but I only have the energy to care for one of you. What a pity." My father crouched down with a warm smile. "I bought your favorite ice cream. How about one for each of you?" I stared at the ice cream in Dad's hand. This was his test for us sisters. The one who showed the most filial piety could stay, while the other would be sent to Mom's impoverished hometown in the mountains to endure backbreaking farm labor. Song Lan shoved me aside, snatched the ice cream, and presented it to Dad with a look of seeking credit. "I won't eat it. All the good things should go to Dad." Those were the exact words I had said in my past life. Just as I expected, a kindly smile spread across Dad's face. Dad patted Lanlan's head and nodded approvingly. "Good. Good. Lanlan is truly the most filial daughter." A flicker of wariness passed through Aunt Cheng's eyes, though she kept her smile in place. "Lanlan is so clever and quick-witted. I've always liked a daughter like you. I'll be sure to treat you well from now on." Lanlan, oblivious to the subtext in Aunt Cheng's words, was lost in the immense joy of finally being allowed to stay. She lifted her chin haughtily and looked at me with a challenging gaze. I knew it then, Lanlan had been reborn too. She pulled out all the stops to secure her place in the wealthy family, little knowing that I had been reborn as well. Song Lan was different from me. When she was a child, she fell gravely ill and required a bone marrow transplant. Neither my father nor my mother was a suitable match, so I was born the following year. After Song Lan recovered, my parents' attitude towards her could only be described as doting. Song Lan has always gotten whatever she wanted. She never had to lift a finger to receive our parents' affection, while I had to be perfect in everything just to earn a scrap of praise. In our last life, when faced with 2 ice creams, she didn't hesitate to pick one. She even shot me a look, warning me not to choose, insisting that both ice creams had to be hers. When our mother was alive, Song Lan was the apple of our father's eye. Now, with Aunt Ching as our stepmother, we'd become less important in our father's eyes. Song Lan didn't understand this logic. It never crossed her mind that something as trivial as ice cream could be the very reason she was sent away to the remote mountains. Just days after being sent away, Song Lan wrote letters complaining about the poor conditions. The mountain area had none of the Western restaurants she loved, none of the malls she enjoyed shopping at, and worst of all, there wasn't even any cell signal. Song Lan wrote dozens of letters, naively believing her father had sent her away because he was too busy after marrying Aunt Ching. She thought he had simply packed her off to the mountains temporarily, and once he was free, she would return in glory to resume her life as the pampered young lady of the house. Little did she know, every single letter she wrote was intercepted by Aunt Ching, torn to pieces, and tossed into the trash. At first, father did mention Song Lan at home, but as time went on, her name never came up again. Unable to bear it any longer, Song Lan chose a night to leave the village. To her dismay, she crossed one mountain only to find another looming ahead. Parched and starving, Song Lan's resolve began to waver. She thought it might be better to turn back. Sure, Life back home was tough, but at least with those poor relatives around, she'd have a bite to eat. Song Lan started heading back, but on the way, she ran into a human trafficker. Song Lan was trafficked to another village, first. She was tied up at the village chief's house, later, forced to serve several men in the village each day. She was eventually shackled with iron chains in a cellar, left at the mercy of her abusers. The poor relatives from the mountains, whom Song Lan had once looked down upon, searched for her day and night. During the search, her elderly great uncle, in his 70s, accidentally tumbled down a hillside. By the time he was found, his body was already cold. 5 years later, Song Lan was discovered and rescued by a journalist who had come to the area for an interview. The journalist escorted her back to the city. At that time, train stations and bus stops were plastered with my advertising campaigns. Back in university, a single appearance on camera had earned me tens of thousands of fans, leading to a smooth signing with a talent agency. Within a year, I debuted in a low-budget web series and, unexpectedly, became an overnight sensation. I became a star with a massive following, and this year, my relationship with the wealthiest man was confirmed. I'm about to marry into a family even more prominent than the Song family. Consumed by jealousy and rage, Song Lan lost all reason and stabbed me countless times at the wedding. Since I've been given a second chance at life, I'll grant her wish. I'm curious to see how a useless person like her will survive in the treacherous Song family. I walked out of the house with a suitcase in hand. My father patted my shoulder, his heart aching for me. Aunt Ching put on a reluctant expression. Don't worry, Ying, your father and I will definitely come visit you during the holidays. I knew this was all an act. She had been my father's mistress for years, enduring humiliation. And finally, after my mother's death, she could hold her head high as he married her. She probably wished Song Lan and I would just disappear, the farther the better, but given her awkward position, she didn't dare make too big a scene right after moving in, afraid of gossip, so, she had to get rid of either me or Song Lan first, then focus on dealing with the other. Song Lan gave a cold laugh. Life in the mountains isn't so easy. It's your turn to go be a breeding sow. Dad shot Song Lan a displeased glare and scolded, Ying is your sister, for goodness sake, I've truly spoiled you rotten. Auntie Ching tried to calm Dad down. Let it go, she's still young and doesn't know any better. It was the first time Song Lan had been reprimanded by her father. Her face was a picture of defiance, and she fell back on her usual spoiled brat routine, storming upstairs without a backward glance. Dad's expression darkened. Auntie Ching continued her soothing words, which seemed to defend Song Lan on the surface, but every sentence was actually pouring fuel on the fire. Auntie Ching is no pushover. Even in my past life, I almost got the short end of the stick with her. Unfortunately, Song Lan doesn't know this yet. She's still gloating, thinking I'll end up like she did in her past life, as the village's communal sow for every man. I traveled by plane first, then transferred to a long-distance bus, and finally rode a donkey cart into the mountainous region. I arrived late in the evening. Country folks usually turn in early, but my relatives were eagerly waiting for me at the village entrance. These are all relatives from my mom's hometown. A dozen or so elders, dressed simply, gathered around, beaming at me with warm smiles. Look at this girl, she's grown up so pretty. Are you hungry, dear? Your auntie has some flatbread here. I've been keeping it warm against my chest, too, Schwanzi. As her cousin, don't you know you should help your sister with her luggage? What's the use of raising you? I might as well have given birth to a piece of braised pork. I stayed at my great-uncle's house. Despite being in poor health, he spent days fixing up his earthen home in anticipation of my visit. My room was painted pink, with even the beams adorned with pink bows. It was far from luxurious, but every detail was filled with the old man's clumsy yet earnest care. The next day, I followed them to the fields. The rice paddies stretched as far as the eye could see. My aunts, all dressed in dark clothes and wearing matching rubber rain boots, bent down time and again to plant the seeds. They wouldn't let me help, insisting I just sit on the ridge and watch. I shook my head. Aunties, I'm an adult now. I can't just sit around and eat without contributing. My aunts looked at me with surprise, and then their expressions softened with approval. They patiently taught me how to transplant rice seedlings, and by the end of the morning, I had pretty much gotten the hang of it. When the midday sun was at its fiercest, my aunts and I went to rest in the small shelter built on the edge of the paddy field. My aunts joked, "This little shed was built overnight by your eldest uncle and the others. It's a special place for you to rest." That's right, Ying. You must be used to a comfortable life in the city. We absolutely can't let you feel too disappointed or unhappy when you arrive. Otherwise, what kind of elders would we be? I smiled. Life in the mountain village might be a bit harder, But the spirit of the people here was undeniably warm and vibrant. Over 2 months, I gradually got the hang of farm work. Not only did it build up my strength, but I also stumbled upon a secret about this little village. One evening, after a long day of farm work, I was covered in sticky sweat and felt thoroughly uncomfortable. Just as I was about to rinse off with some cold water from the storage jar, my cousin Schwanzi whispered mysteriously that he wanted to take me to a special spot. He led me to a spring at the foot of the mountain. The water here is warm, go on, try it, you won't believe it until you do. I dipped my hand into the clear spring water, and a warm sensation spread from my fingertips. My eyes instantly lit up with a spark of pure delight. My cousin Schwanzi thought this little spring was a miracle, but I knew better. This wasn't a miracle at all. It was a sign that this mountain might hold a precious hot spring resource. The small mountain village was picturesque, with simple, honest folk. If we developed the hot springs properly, it could very well become a tourist haven, a real hidden paradise. Knowing that opportunity waits for no one, I immediately begged my uncle to take me to the nearest town in his donkey cart. I contacted a geological survey agency, and they sent people to the small mountain village to conduct a field investigation. The test results came back a month later. The mountain where the small village is located indeed has abundant hot spring resources. Not only that, but the soil on the mountain is also particularly suitable for growing crops. I brought the test result report back to the small village. My aunts chattered away with beaming smiles. Really? So you mean if we tap into the hot springs, we can get people to come visit? Schwanzi, you found hot springs and didn't say anything sooner. For heaven's sake, I might as well have given birth to a pig instead of you. My cousin Schwanzi stood pitifully in the corner, his thick eyebrows drooping innocently. How was I supposed to know what a hot spring is? A dozen or so family members back home looked at me with complete trust. My uncles chuckled and said, "Ing. We're just simple farmers without much education. We'll do whatever you tell us to do." My aunts nodded in agreement. That's right, you have our full support. The eldest in the family, second great uncle, took a puff from his long-stemmed pipe. Without a word, he pulled out a crumpled bankbook from a hidden compartment in the drawer. The passbook contained exactly 80,000 yuan. Undoubtedly the life savings my great-uncle had set aside for his final years. Take it and spend it. If it's not enough, your old grandpa has more. Great-uncle grinned. His face, weathered with over 70 years of life's trials, was etched with deep wrinkles, yet he looked so kind and gentle. The small mountain village had just over 100 households. With the persuasion of my aunts, the entire village agreed to tap into the hot springs and vigorously develop tourism. Logically, after summer break, I should have returned to university, but I couldn't bring myself to leave the little village behind, so I applied for a 1-year leave of absence from my studies. After going through the whole process of investment promotion in the city, I finally convinced a business owner to inject the first investment into our small mountain village. After 3 months of development, the village finally tapped into a large-scale hot spring. I also applied to the relevant authorities to build a signal tower on the mountain, finally connecting the isolated villagers to the outside world. My cousin Schwanzi was the first in the village to buy a smartphone. Following his lead, the young people in the village gradually started getting phones of their own. In my past life, I worked in the entertainment industry and had long since figured out the principles of hype. I couldn't afford to hire an online army. But all 100 or so households in the village volunteered to post comments and likes online. Not long after, 2 social news reporters actually came to interview us. The tourism development of our small mountain village was finally taking shape. News of the little mountain village's booming prosperity reached my father's ears. After more than half a year, he called me for the first time. "Ing. The Mid-Autumn Festival is almost here. Come home for a visit." I agreed. Even though it had only been a little over half a year, I was already starting to wonder if Song Lan, who had stayed behind, was living the life of a wealthy young socialite she had always dreamed of. After the interview aired, the outside world's attention to our little mountain village surged almost overnight. Following that, 2 more companies approached me on their own initiative, deciding to invest. One of them was every bit as large as my father's company, perhaps recognizing my potential. My father went out of his way to host a banquet to welcome me home. At the banquet, everyone milling about was dressed in designer gowns. A single, simple piece of jewelry on any one of them could easily equal a year's income for a family back in the mountain village. I arrived a little late, walking into the villa in a simple white shirt and jeans, sticking out like a sore thumb. My father, dressed in a suit and tie, saw me and frowned with disapproval. "Why on earth are you dressed like that?" 3. Over the past 6 months, my skin had tanned more than a shade, taking on a healthy, sun-kissed glow, and my eyes were bright and alert. I just finished an interview with a television station. Hearing this, my father beamed with pride and explained to the others, showing off, "Sorry, my daughter is late because she just finished an interview. After all, she was recently named one of the nation's top 10 model workers from the mountainous regions." I had no interest in the banquet's mutual flattery. After scanning the room and failing to spot Song Lan, I wandered into the garden to admire the rare flowers my father had painstakingly cultivated. A series of footsteps sounded beside me. I looked up and met Song Lan's teasing gaze. Song Lan hadn't changed a bit, perhaps due to an excessive pursuit of that pale, youthful, and slender aesthetic. She had lost a shocking amount of weight in the half year since I'd last seen her. Her waist was frighteningly thin, looking as if it could snap with the slightest pressure. Song Lan looked at me with disdain. "A whole year, and you actually endured that godforsaken backwater. Just look at you, you're the spitting image of a country bumpkin. How utterly provincial." I raised an eyebrow. "The village development is coming along quite well now. The villagers have nearly finished excavating the hot spring in the mountain village. I've hired a team of professional builders who are currently constructing a resort. We should be on track to complete it before the new year." But it was clear Song Lan didn't believe a word of it. In her mind, that little mountain village was still a remote, impoverished wasteland, a place without even a cell signal. She was about to throw another jab at me when a blur of motion came barreling out of nowhere and slammed right into Song Lan. Song Lan, with her slender arms and legs, was nearly knocked flat on her face by the impact. She stumbled several steps before finally regaining her balance, only to see a flashily dressed boy holding a remote control, his head cocked arrogantly. "Get out of the way, you're blocking my RC car." I narrowed my eyes. I knew this boy all too well. Song Yang was the son of Aunt Ching and my father. He had been kept hidden away until my mother passed away. The reason Aunt Ching has maintained her unshakable position as the mistress for so many years is largely because she gave Dad a son. Aside from knowing how to act coy and play the damsel in distress, ultimately, a son holds a different place in a father's heart than a daughter does. The moment Song Yang came into view, Song Lan's face contorted, as if she were on the verge of throwing a tantrum. Yet, mindful of Song Yang, her father's treasured favorite, she swallowed her anger and stood quietly to the side, proud as a young lion. Song Yang rolled his eyes mischievously, as if to deliberately provoke her. He steered his remote-control car to repeatedly bump into Song Lan's high heels. She took a deep breath, lifted her foot, and shifted another step away. With that step, she accidentally trod on the remote-control car, and Song Yang immediately flew into a rage. Hurling the remote controller at her, Song Lan let out a cry of alarm, narrowly dodging the flying remote. "This is all your fault, you got my remote control car dirty." Faced with the aggressive Song Yang, who was 7 or 8 years her junior, Song Lan was just about to let her spoiled young lady temper flare when a servant nearby cleared their throat loudly. "Miss, this is the young master. Don't forget your place." In an instant, Song Lan shuddered. Shooting a resentful glare at the young Song Yang, she must have suffered at Song Yang's hands before. She knew that if she tried to teach him a lesson, father would surely hold her accountable in the end. With Aunt Ching whispering in his ear for so long, and Song Yang being the only son, the scales in father's heart had long been heavily tipped. Even Song Lan is no longer worthy of father's regard. Song Lan forced a smile, groveling to appease him. "My mistake, little brother. Let me clean your toy car for you." "Alright." "No." Song Yang's eyes darted, and he made an outrageous demand. "Get on your knees and lick it clean." How could that possibly be acceptable? Song Lan's emotions flared violently, crimson blood vessels appearing in the whites of her eyes as she bit down hard on her lip. The servant fixed a sinister gaze on the pale-faced Song Lan. "Miss, are you really going to defy the young master's orders?" Song Lan choked back her words, her chest heaving with rage as she clenched her fists. I knew all too well the consequences of defying Song Yang. Being forced to kneel as punishment was the least of it. Once, I was locked in a dark room for 3 days and 3 nights. By the time I finally got out, I was nearly dead from thirst, hanging on by a thread. The servant's threat worked. Song Lan knelt on the uneven cobblestone path in the garden, picked up the remote control car, and stuck out her tongue to give it a lick. A sudden wave of nausea hit her, and she turned her head to the side, retching. "Ha ha ha, this is fun, so obedient, more obedient than a dog." Song Yang started clapping, and the servants joined in with laughter, watching Song Lan's dignity being trampled into the dirt. I raised a skeptical eyebrow. It was only then that Song Yang noticed me. Unaware of who I was, he mistook me for some servant who'd wandered in. "You, come here, tie this for me." Song Yang pointed imperiously at his own bow tie, while the contemptible Song Lan watched me with a smug, knowing smirk. I could tell from the look in her eyes that she was practically wishing for me to suffer the same humiliation at Song Yang's hands. A faint smile touched my lips as I took a step forward. "Are you sure you want me to tie your bow tie?" "Enough talk," Song Yang snapped, his face a mask of impatience. "Do a bad job and I swear I'll have my boys beat you right here, right now." It wouldn't be the first time. My fingers slowly settled on the soft fabric of the bow tie, and then, I yanked it tight. The bow tie was strangling Song Yang's neck with a vengeance. Within seconds, his face turned beet red, his hands clawed and scratched at my arms, but with all the farm work I'd done, his strength was less than a country mutt's. He stood no chance against me. Just as Song Yang was on the verge of being choked to death, I let go. "You lunatic, you," cough cough. "Lunatic," Song Yang's eyes bulged. His face contorted in a snarl as he pointed at me. "What are you all standing around for? Tie her up." Song Lan, standing to the side, was utterly dumbstruck. She seemed completely shocked that I dared lay a hand on Song Yang. The commotion in the garden drew father's attention, along with a crowd of curious, gossiping guests. Seeing her son had been wronged, Aunt Ching immediately pulled Song Yang into a hug and, like a true drama queen, managed to squeeze out tears in an instant. "Darling. Look, our Yang has been hit. He's your only son." Father's brow furrowed into deep creases. Song Lan sidled up to me and sneered. "Serves you right. Just wait and see how father punishes you. For all your arrogance, you'll still end up worse off than me." I shot her a glance. Her pristine white dress was now stained with grimy dirt from her earlier kneeling, and her hair was disheveled. I said, "You should worry about yourself first." Song Lan's expression froze. Then she glared at me with utter contempt, waiting to see me get my comeuppance. She didn't believe that after I had offended Song Yang this time, our father would let me off the hook so easily. Song Yang is still too young and impulsive. He shoved aside Aunt Ching, who was crying and playing the victim, and pointed at me in front of everyone, shouting, "I'm going to beat her to death today. Dad, you can't just stand by." The guests overheard Song Yang's arrogant and aggressive words, and they began to whisper and point fingers at the family. Father was utterly humiliated. Noticing his change in mood, Aunt Ching discreetly tugged at Song Yang's sleeve, urging her son to shut up immediately. But Song Yang had been spoiled rotten. He was the little tyrant of the household. Not only did he threaten to beat me to death, he even started spewing the most vile, filthy language. It was so appalling that the guests cleared their throats, and a wave of hushed whispers rippled through the room. "So this is the young master of the Song family. Is this the upbringing he received? A family that raises a child like this must be rotten to the core. TSK. I'm cutting all ties with the Song family from now on." Every word pierced father's ears like a needle. He suddenly roared at Song Yang, "Shut your mouth. Where did a child your age learn such foul language? I've spoiled you rotten." Song Yang retorted defiantly. "I'm not wrong, she's the one who's at fault." Dad's anger flared even higher. "That's your sister." Seeing this, Aunt Ching was about to play the victim, but she didn't expect me to suddenly speak up in a fragile voice. "Please don't be angry, Dad. It's all my fault. I've been living in the mountains this past year, so it's only natural my little brother doesn't recognize me." Playing the weak card wasn't a trick only Aunt Ching could use. I could certainly do it too. Sure enough, upon hearing my words, Dad was instantly filled with pity for me. "No, it's not your fault, Ying. I'm the one who's failed you." The dinner ended on a sour note. To make it up to me, Dad gave me a 5 million yuan investment fund for the Mountain Village project. As we were leaving, Song Yang confiscated all computers, phones, and tablets. I had to follow a strict schedule to the letter. Every day was nothing but studying, eating, and sleeping. Auntie Ching, heartbroken for her son, tried to whisper in Dad's ear and influence him. Dad suddenly flew into a rage and shoved her away. "The whole circle is gossiping about my terrible character now, and it's all because of your precious son. If you dare bring it up again, I'll put him under house arrest. See if I don't." Aunt Cheng's face went pale. She sank to her knees on the floor. Never since she married into the family had father treated her like this. Dad asked me to stay home a few more days. Coincidentally, several companies had extended offers, so I took the chance to sort out the partnership details. Once, as I was passing Song Yang's room, a rude, youthful voice called out from behind me, "Hey, stop right there." I turned a deaf ear to him, treating Song Yang as if he were thin air, and continued calling my aunts to let them know I was safe. The sound of hurried footsteps approached. Just as Song Yang was about to snatch the phone from my hand, I seized his wrist in a tight grip. Song Yang glared at me fiercely, opening his foul mouth once more. "My mom said it. You're a motherless bastard. Get the hell out of my house." I gazed at Song Yang calmly, thinking his words had cut deep. He puffed out his chest with a smug, triumphant air, but the next moment, Without a second's hesitation, I slapped Song Yang right across the face. Song Yang was stunned, and the servant was stunned too. Before Song Yang could even get angry, I slapped him again. His head was ringing from the slap, and then he heard my sneer, "How dare a bastard born to some mistress on the outside talk back to me? Go ask my sister, Song Lan. If you don't believe me, neither of us is afraid of you." With that, I turned and walked away. I cleverly redirected Song Yang's rage from me onto Song Lan, making him believe I had the nerve to slap him only because she had my back. After standing there for a moment to process what happened, Song Yang's first move was to storm into Song Lan's room to confront her. Before long, startled shrieks from Song Lan echoed from upstairs, mingled with the sounds of the two of them scuffling. Song Lan shouted at the top of her lungs, "What are you doing? I'm taking a shower, get out, now." Song Yang paid no attention to what she was doing. He sprang up, grabbed Song Lan by her long hair, and without a second thought, began dragging her out. Song Lan, who had been undressing for her bath, was now half naked. As Song Yang forcibly dragged her into the corridor, most of her body was exposed to the lowly servants, leaving nothing to the imagination. Song Lan could bear it no longer. Suddenly, she shoved Song Yang with all her might. The villa was in complete chaos that day. Song Yang fell down the stairs, and the servants rushed the young master to the hospital. The examination revealed it was just a simple sprained ankle. Auntie Ching deliberately wailed and exaggerated Song Yang's injury, which made father fly into a terrible rage. From the moment Song Yang was taken to the hospital, Song Lan knelt at the corner of the corridor. Her back remained rigid and unbending, her lips bitten until they were stained with blood. I walked up to her and gave her a sidelong, indifferent glance. "So, this is the life you wanted?" Song Lan snorted a laugh. "Don't think you've won, just you wait, I'll make you regret this one day." To say Song Lan is foolish, well, she certainly didn't disappoint, and to think, she still believes I'm the sole reason she ended up like this. In my past life, I stayed with the Song family. On the surface, I was still the glamorous young lady of the house, but behind the scenes, Aunt Ching and her son schemed against me countless times. Being forced to kneel in punishment, locked in a dark room, beaten. If I hadn't been so cautious by nature, all those punishments would have been inflicted on me. Once I understood the reality of my situation, I threw myself into my studies without a moment's slack and racked my brains to build a network of connections. The Song family will only treat me with respect once I've climbed higher than them. I spent my days completely immersed in the lab, and my nights working the social circuit, schmoozing and catering to people's whims. In my past life, I endured 3 years of hardship before finally becoming a top-tier actress. With the added prestige of a prestigious university degree, the Song family no longer dared to slight me. Even the arrogant and domineering Song Yang had to watch his step around me. In this life, I secured sponsorship from major corporations for the development of a small mountain village and, through media hype, earned the title of model worker. Whichever role I take on proves my capability and solidifies my irreplaceable position in this family. Yet, Song Lan clearly doesn't grasp this. She actually believes that by taking my place and staying with the Song family, she can live a carefree and indulgent life. Song Yang merely sprained his ankle, yet he made a grand production out of it, checking into the hospital for several days. Throughout that time, Song Lan knelt at the corner of the hallway, gawked at by onlookers like a monkey in a zoo. I knew Song Lan was bound to stir up trouble, but I never expected to receive a call from the hospital a few days later. I rushed to the hospital and found my great-uncle lying on the bed, his face pale and ashen, his eyes were shut tight, and his forehead was beaded with cold sweat. My uncles and aunts were gathered around the bed, looking utterly distraught. I quickly asked, "What happened?" It all started when my cousin Schwanzi got a call from a strange woman. She claimed to be my older sister from the city and said I'd been in an accident and taken to the hospital. Great-uncle didn't hesitate for a second. He was determined to head into the city. My uncles and aunts, worried about the old man getting around, hurried after him. Great-uncle had never left the mountains in his life, let alone seen an airplane. Deep down, he thought such contraptions were unnatural and downright wicked. For my sake, Great-uncle pushed past his fears and boarded a plane for the very first time. Right after getting off the plane, Great-uncle suddenly felt a sharp pain in his chest and passed out before he could finish his sentence. The hospital tests revealed that Great-uncle has a heart condition. It's a good thing he was rushed to the hospital in time, or the consequences could have been dire. The aunts wiped their tears, saying, "We tried calling you, but you didn't answer. We were scared to death. I was out all day today negotiating a business deal, and my phone was switched off. Great-uncle's heart condition is critical. He needs a stent immediately." After covering Great-uncle's medical bills, I left the hospital and stormed straight back to the villa. kicking Song Lan's door open without a word. Song Lan was trying on a new dress. Without a moment's hesitation, I snatched it and threw it over her head. Song Ying, are you trying to kill me, you lunatic? Are you going to murder me over those worthless peasants from the village? Song Lan's contorted features pressed against the fabric. I ground my teeth and demanded, why did you go after my family? Song Lan's body went rigid before she burst into a maniacal laugh. Song Ying, you're nothing but a bitch. You're the only one who cares about those poor relations, though I must admit, I didn't realize they meant that much to you. I told you I'd make you regret this. I glared at Song Lan's face, fury burning through me, and increased the pressure with my hands, as the cloth covering her face grew tighter and tighter, cutting off her air. A flicker of panic crossed Song Lan's features. No, you can't do this to me. I'm about to marry Jiang Lin, the wealthiest man in the city. My grip loosened. Marry who, did you say? Seizing the chance, Song Lan pushed me away and narrowed her eyes haughtily. The richest man in the city, Jiang Lin. I stared at Song Lan in silence, then let out a sudden, cold laugh. Fine, go ahead and marry him. To marry Jiang Lin, Song Lan threw all shame to the wind, spreading the word that she would marry no one but him. Song Lan went to great lengths to find out Jiang Lin's whereabouts, hoping to engineer a chance encounter. But before she could put her plan into action, Jiang Lin sent his secretary to discuss marriage arrangements. Song Lan was overjoyed. Had she really landed the richest man in town so effortlessly? The secretary primarily brought a prenuptial agreement document, which stated that even if Song Lan married into the family, she would have no claim to any of the assets. Song Lan's smile froze on her face, but in her desire to marry into wealth, she hesitated for a moment before signing anyway. She's still clinging to her beautiful fantasy, convinced that once she marries him and spends every day with the young, handsome tycoon, feelings are bound to develop. Won't that prenuptial agreement just become a worthless piece of paper then? For a while, Song Lan was walking tall at home, puffing out her chest with pride. When she saw me, she couldn't help but boast about how she was soon to become the tycoon's wife. I looked at her as if she were a fool. In her past life, Song Lan only knew that I had married a tycoon, so, after finding out that the current tycoon was Jiang Lin, she was desperate to marry him herself. Little did I know, the man I married was actually Jiang Lin's son, Jiang Chen. In my past life, to escape the Song family, I used my connections to meet Jiang Chen. The moment we laid eyes on each other, we recognized the ambition hidden within one another. In this lifetime, Jiang Lin is a notorious womanizer who never turns down a woman with even a hint of charm. Jiang Chen is the child of Jiang Lin and his first wife. Besides him, there are several illegitimate children on the outside, all coveting the Jiang family fortune. I pretended not to know Jiang Chen and deliberately got close to Jiang Lin, seizing the opportunity to probe his thoughts. In return, Jiang Chen paved the way for me in the entertainment industry. That interview that made me an overnight sensation seemed like a chance occurrence, but it was a prearranged inevitability. Jiang Chen and I worked together seamlessly, ruthless to others and even more ruthless to ourselves. After Jiang Lin's death, the will stated that the estate was to be divided equally among all his children. Without a second thought, I directly altered the will. 5. Jiang Chen waited 3 days before announcing Jiang Lin's death. By the time his illegitimate children arrived, it was already too late. Jiang Chen inherited the entire Jiang family fortune. Our business relationship should have ended there, but he kept seeking me out. Once, we were photographed by paparazzi, and to my surprise, Jiang Chen publicly announced we were in a relationship. Jiang Chen said he needed a soulmate for a wife, and I just happened to fit the bill. I don't understand it, but I respect his decision. In my past life, I had planned to ask Jiang Chen after the wedding, what exactly did he feel for me? Was it just using me, or was there genuine affection? Unfortunately, I never got the chance to ask before Song Lan stabbed me to death. Since it was a second marriage, Jiang Lin didn't put much thought into it. He just picked a random Sunday for the date. A fleet of Maseratis was parked in front of the Song family's villa. Song Lan was upstairs in the bedroom doing her makeup when the front doorbell rang. I went to answer it. A familiar face greeted me, a pair of smiling, peach blossom eyes. I froze. This was my first time seeing Jiang Chen since my rebirth. Jiang Chen raised an eyebrow and leaned in slightly. So, you're my new stepmother. My face flushed. I am not. Jiang Chen responded with a nonchalant hum. After a brief pause, he spoke. Good thing you're not. Otherwise, it'd be such a waste for someone this beautiful to be my stepmother. You should be my girlfriend instead. My heart skipped a beat, and I lightly bit my lower lip. Something's off. In my past life, when Jiang Chen and I first started working together, he was aloof and distant. It was only later that he began teasing me frequently. How could this be? Before I could even think of an answer, Song Lan, clad in her wedding dress, descended the stairs with a bashful and timid air. Upon seeing the handsome Jiang Chen, her cheeks flushed crimson, and she made a move to take his arm. "You must be Jiang Lin." "Right," she said. "Thank you for coming to fetch me in person." "I'm not him," Jiang Chen replied, his tone cool and detached as he evaded her hand. "I'm here on my father's behalf to receive the bride." Song Lan was taken aback. "Your father?" Jiang Chen gave a slight nod. "The Jiang Lin you're marrying is my father. He's 52 and the wealthiest man in Jiang City." "No, that can't be." It finally dawned on Song Lan that she had made a terrible mistake. The man she was supposed to marry was meant to be a young, accomplished tycoon. How could he possibly be some old geezer? She clutched her bouquet tightly, shaking her head frantically. "I won't marry him. I refuse to marry an old man." "Dad, please, talk to them for me. I don't want to go through with this," Aunt Ching said with a sarcastic tone. "You were the one who swore you'd only marry the richest man, Mr. Jiang. And now you're the one going back on your word. Our Song family can't afford to offend the Jiangs." Song Lan's eyes welled up with tears as she looked at her father, her gaze full of hope. "Dad, please, let Song Ying marry him instead. I don't want to marry some old man." But it didn't take father long to weigh his options and decide which was more important, a daughter or the Jiang family. Father has been preening himself these days, thrilled at the prospect of allying with the Song family. How could he possibly let Song Lan just call off the marriage on a whim? Smack! Father raised his hand and delivered a sharp slap to Song Lan's face, roaring in fury. "Who do you think the Jiang family is? You think you can just refuse to marry, and have your younger sister take your place? Have you no shame?" Stunned by the blow, Song Lan's face was streaked with tears, a picture of utter wretchedness. In the end, father had a few servants tie Song Lan up and shove her into the car. She fought desperately, but it was no use. Jiang Chen narrowed his eyes with an inscrutable expression. "Tying her up, that could work. My father might just be into that sort of thing." The price of Jiang Lin's youthful promiscuity was that he was already impotent by 50. To satisfy his twisted psyche, he took particular pleasure in tormenting his women with cruel methods and instruments. 3 months after Song Lan married into the Jiang household, it was said the family's maids could hear her blood-curdling cries for help every single night. Song Lan chose this path herself, and I feel not an ounce of sympathy for her. Great-uncle's coronary artery bypass surgery was a complete success, and the construction of the small mountain village was also finished just before the Lunar New Year. The small mountain village's hot spring resort officially opened for business on the first day of the Lunar New Year. Thanks to prior coordination with the media, opening day saw a constant stream of visitors, with the place packed to the rafters. Everything was moving in a positive direction, except for one person. "What's the occasion this time?" I frowned, looking at Jiang Chen sitting across from me. Jiang Chen maintained his smile. "I heard this new restaurant is good, so I brought you here to try it." I'd heard that excuse from Jiang Chen several times before. Whenever he discovered something novel, he'd share it with me. I teased. "Maybe I should just set up a VIP suite for you at the villa, so you can see me every day." Jiang Chen naturally took my hand, his peach blossom eyes crinkling into a smile. "Good," he said. "I knew I had a place in your heart." My hand jerked back as if shocked by an electric current. "What are you talking about, Mr. Jiang? Please remember your position. If you spread rumors, I'll have my lawyer send you a cease and desist." Jiang Chen simply smiled without a word, quietly gazing at me. Jiang Chen had also come with a serious matter. He'd heard that Jiang Lin was recently considering drafting a will, so he intended to strike first. Jiang Chen simply assumed I would help him without even asking my opinion, and as it turned out, he was right. In my past life, I personally took on the task of currying favor with Jiang Lin to set a trap for him, but this time we have a ready-made candidate. Song Lan endured 3 months of torment in the Jiang household. Every night, Jiang Lin would prick her with needles. No matter how she wept and pleaded, he showed no mercy. Acting like a deranged sadist, Jiang Lin relished the sight of women groveling at his feet. Over those months, Song Lan's dignity was utterly destroyed. Her status was lower than a dog's. Even the nanny could boss her around. Song Lan had called her father several times, but far from showing sympathy. He even threatened that if she couldn't make Jiang Lin happy, the Song family had no use for a useless daughter. "Useless? You're all the useless ones." Fuming with rage, Song Lan hung up the phone. She had to come up with a good plan, and fast. By chance, Song Lan heard about a pill that could restore a man's vigor, said to work even for a 70-year-old, with a nothing-to-lose attitude. Song Lan bought it and secretly slipped it into Jiang Lin's water. That night, Jiang Lin didn't need any aids. He took matters into his own hands. Jiang Lin was so thrilled he couldn't sleep all night. Holding Song Lan, he called her his lucky star. saying just looking at her made him feel young again. Song Lan had gotten a taste of the good life and finally experienced a glimmer of what it felt like to be the wife of the richest man, basking in the adoration of the crowd. The flattery from those around her greatly fueled her ambition. Song Lan increased the frequency of administering the drug from once every 3 days to daily, until after the Lantern Festival, when Jiang Lin died suddenly in his bed. Trembling with fear, Song Lan shakily reached out to check Jiang Lin's breath. Upon discovering he had stopped breathing, her first instinct was to immediately dispose of all the medicine, but just as she was about to dispose of the medicine, the bedroom door was pushed open. Jiang Chen stared coldly at Song Lan, who was holding the medicine in a panic, and raised an eyebrow. "Did you kill my father?" "No, it wasn't me. I didn't kill anyone." Song Lan shook her head like a rattledrum, her mind filled with the desperate need to flee the scene. She bolted out of the bedroom. She was genuinely terrified out of her wits, to the point she didn't even notice me standing right behind Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen asked, "Do we keep following?" I shook my head. "We were the ones who tricked Song Lan into buying that drug. If they dig deeper, it could spell trouble for both Jiang Chen and me. The outcome would be the same anyway." Jiang Lin died before he could make a will, so Jiang Chen, as the son from the first marriage, inherited the entire estate outright. Upon hearing of Jiang Lin's death, all his illegitimate children rushed over. When they learned the inheritance excluded them, they threw a fit and even threatened to sue. "We're all his sons. Why should we be cut out of the inheritance?" A mocking glint flickered in the depths of Jiang Chen's dark eyes. "Sons? Do you have a paternity test to prove it?" "Jiang Chen and I had everything planned out long ago. We arranged for Jiang Lin to be cremated immediately after his death. Those bastards can't very well run a paternity test on a pile of ashes." 6. It was a ruthless, definitive move, cutting the problem off at the root. The expressions on those illegitimate children's faces were utterly devastated. Song Lan threw the medicine into the trash. Even though she had destroyed the evidence, she was still paralyzed by the panic of being a murderer. She didn't dare go to the Jiang family to ask for news, nor did she dare return to the Song residence. When she thought about checking into a hotel, she discovered everyone required ID. Song Lan was like a rat on the run, shivering on a park bench by day and holing up in an ATM vestibule by night. After more than a week of roughing it, Song Lan had finally had enough. Her once light clothes were now grimy and unrecognizable, her hair a tangled bird's nest. She looked like a ragged wild woman who'd just stumbled out of the mountains. Song Lan decided to sneak back to the Song family home to steal some money. Tiptoeing up to the 3rd floor, she ran smack into Song Yang, who was brandishing a toy knife. "Thief!" Song Yang brandished the realistic-looking toy knife. "Get out of my house. I'm calling the police." The word police triggered Song Lan, whose mental state was already precarious. Without a second thought, she shoved Song Yang, shouting, "I'm not a thief. I didn't break the law. I didn't kill anyone. I didn't do it. None of it was me." Song Lan fled in a panic just as I was returning to the villa. Last time, Song Yang was lucky. Falling from upstairs only resulted in a sprained ankle. This time, luck abandoned him. Song Yang was already on the brink of death when he arrived at the hospital. Doctors determined it was massive bleeding caused by a skull fracture. After over an hour of desperate resuscitation, they barely managed to save his life. However, he was left with cerebral palsy and will require lifelong care. Aunt Ching seemed to age 10 years overnight. Seeing her own son in such a state was more agonizing than death itself. Aunt Ching reported the incident to the police. Home surveillance footage clearly showed Song Lan pushing Song Yang down the stairs. The police promptly opened an investigation and issued a warrant for Song Lan's arrest, but Song Lan vanished into thin air. Despite searching for a full 3 months, the police found no trace of her. 3 months later, news suddenly broke to the public that I was to marry Jiang Chen, the city's wealthiest man. Just like in my past life, Jiang Chen arranged a grand, extravagant wedding for me. Word was leaked to all the major media outlets half a month in advance, making the entire city green with envy. While eating her meal during a break from cleaning toilets, Song Lan saw the news of my impending marriage. A spark of jealousy instantly flared up, and she clenched her fists in bitter resentment. To this day, she still blames me for all her misfortunes, determined to take me down with her. Song Lan took a knife and crept into the Song family villa in the dead of night. She silently pushed open the door to my bedroom. In the pitch darkness, she could just make out a figure lying in the bed. Without a moment's hesitation, Song Lan raised the blade high. The knife plunged into flesh with a sickening thwack. A hysterical laugh burst from Song Lan's lips. "Song Ying, just die, ha ha ha. In the end, you still had to die by my hand, didn't you? All of this is your fault. If it weren't for you, I'd be the happiest person in the world." The bed was quickly soaked in blood. Sensing no further movement from the person beneath the covers, Song Lan hastily retrieved the knife and fled in a panic. The next day, the maid discovered my father's body and screamed as she called the police. The reason I accepted Jiang Chen's proposal and then publicized it everywhere was to force Song Lan out into the open. What Song Lan didn't know was that while she was away, I suggested all the recent misfortune in the house might be due to bad feng shui. On the advice of a feng shui master, my father and I swapped rooms. If we hadn't switched bedrooms, I would have been the one to die. The next morning, Song Lan was all smiles as she bought breakfast and settled in to watch the mall's television, fully expecting to soon see the news of my death. Yet, there was nothing. She stared wide-eyed, her gaze fixed until her eyes ached, only to be met with a bombshell announcement. The chairman of the Song Group had passed away the previous night. In mourning, my and Jiang Chen's grand, much-anticipated wedding was postponed indefinitely. A deafening buzz filled Song Lan's ears, as if a swarm of 10,000 flies had descended. Despair etched itself across her face. Impossible. How could this be? I definitely killed that bitch. Song Ying. Out of the corner of her eye, Song Lan spotted 2 police officers heading her way. A cold sweat drenched her body, and she took off running. The police hunted Song Lan for a full 5 years, and it wasn't until that time had passed that she was finally apprehended. While Song Lan was on the run, she was abducted by human traffickers, drugged into unconsciousness. She awoke to find herself in a desolate, uninhabited mountain range. In the end, after all the twists and turns, Song Lan met the same fate as in her previous life. She became a plaything for all the men in the village. When the police finally found her, Song Lan was a broken woman, driven half-mad and emaciated to the bone. Through her tears, she kept repeating one phrase: "I can't accept this, I just can't accept it." Jiang Chen and I were on our honeymoon in Bali when we heard the news. The day before our grand wedding, we laid all our cards on the table. It turned out Jiang Chen was also reborn. The regrets from our previous life's grand wedding, he made up for them completely in this one. On top of that, there was a whole heap of sweet nothings. Darling, the truth is, I fell for you at first sight. You thought I was aloof and cold. That was just me putting on a front. Darling, I really, really like you so much. Honey, annoyed, I covered my ears and stared at the azure water, wondering if I should just toss that chatterbox Jiangchen right in. Never mind, a sweet smile played on my lips. I'd better wait 100 years before finishing him off. Story 2. I waited in the restaurant until 10 o'clock. When the waiter reminded me that the restaurant was about to close, I received a message on my phone. It was Chu Yan. "Ayo, I'll wait for you at home." When I saw the message, my fingers curled up suddenly, then I trembled, my eyes were red. I was reborn. On the night of my 3rd wedding anniversary with Chu Yan. To celebrate, Chu Yan booked the entire restaurant and decorated it carefully. I dressed up, but Chu Yan didn't come. His good brother Chen Rui died suddenly and asked him to take good care of his sister Chen Nanue before he died. Chu Yan was particularly concerned. He took Chen Nanue home that night. Even the explanation was exactly the same as in the previous life. Nanue has no family. I can't ignore her. How did I respond to Chu Yan in the previous life? Hysterically opposed and accused. Does your so-called care mean that she must live in our house? We are husband and wife. Why don't you respect my ideas? In response to me, there were only Chen Nanue's tears of grievance and Chu Yan's cold reproach. "Qing Yu, you are so cold-blooded." He let Chen Nanue live at home despite my objection. Later, because of Chen Nanue, Chu Yan and I had countless quarrels and misunderstandings. I tried everything to get the Chu Yan who loved me back, but compared with the delicate and pitiful Chen Nanue, my accusations and grievances became unreasonable in Chu Yan's eyes. Chen Nanue threw away the kitten I had raised for 2 years, and Chu Yan was reluctant to scold her. When Chen Nanue and I were kidnapped together, Chu Yan abandoned me without hesitation and saved her. So in this life, facing the serious Chu Yan and the aggrieved Chen Nanue hiding behind him and crying, I just smiled slightly. "Okay, since you've decided, let her stay." Chu Yan's pupils shrank, and his attitude was skeptical. "Ayo, did you really agree?" I tilted my head and smiled. "She is your good brother's sister, and you should take care of her. I am your wife, and I believe you know your limits, so why should I refuse?" Chu Yan opened his mouth, but didn't speak. I told the housekeeper to clean up the guest bedroom on the 1st floor for Chen Nanue. In the previous life, Chu Yan and I had a big fight, and he deliberately went against me and let Chen Nanue live on the 2nd floor. Since the objection is invalid, I will take the initiative. Chu Yan felt guilty about me and would not refute me at this time. That night, I didn't let Chu Yan sleep with me. He thought I was throwing a tantrum and said a few harsh words. After hearing my cough, He remembered that I had been sitting alone in the cold wind of the open-air restaurant all night. Then, feeling guilty, he told the housekeeper to prepare cold medicine for me. He promised me again and again that he would never break my promise again, I said him languidly. Chu Yan's movements were stiff, but he didn't say anything more. After tucking the quilt for me, he tiptoed to the guest bedroom next door. It was finally quiet. I turned over. The next second I fell asleep with Xiaoguai in my arms. It wasn't because of a cold, but before I died in my previous life, I was tied up in a cold factory for 2 days. I didn't dare to sleep or cry. I was so nervous for too long that I couldn't stand it, so I slept very soundly this time. I didn't wake up until almost noon the next day. Chen Nanyue was sitting on the sofa in the living room packing her luggage. When she heard me coming downstairs, she just looked up at me, but she didn't take the initiative to say hello, and continued to pack her clothes in an orderly manner, and asked the housekeeper to make coffee for her. She was like the hostess of this house, in my previous life. I was like a balloon that exploded at a touch when faced with her provocation, and I quarreled with her. During the argument, she deliberately fell to the ground, and was seen by Chu Yan, who went home to get documents. He asked me to apologize without asking the cause and effect. I naturally refused. As a result, Chu Yan ignored me for half a month. Now facing a rather clumsy trick, I am no longer angry. I ignored her and walked into the restaurant. The housekeeper took the initiative to bring breakfast without my instructions. It was obvious who was the mistress of this family. Chen Nanyue blushed. She threw the luggage with a crackling sound. The housekeeper frowned. As soon as she took a step over there, she was stopped by my eyes. Amid Chen Nanyue's voice of resistance, I finished my first hot meal after rebirth with satisfaction. Xiaoguai stretched his waist and moved to my feet and meowed. I picked it up and held it in my arms. Looking at the warm sunlight in early autumn, it's so comfortable. Chu Yan should have told the housekeeper long ago. So as soon as I finished breakfast, the housekeeper opened the door and let the staff in. She finally packed up the things Chen Nanyue had left in the living room and sent them back to her room. Then she told the staff to put Chu Yan's gifts in the living room one by one: top luxury jewelry, haute couture dresses, limited edition bags, the latest sports cars. They were all anniversary gifts that Chu Yan gave me out of guilt. I didn't feel anything, but Chen Nanyue was jealous. Sister Qingyu, you are so lucky to marry Brother Yan. You don't have to do anything to enjoy a luxurious life. I was silent for a moment and corrected her expressionlessly. No, you should envy me for having a good reincarnation. After all, this is how I lived before I married Chu Yan. Chen Nanyue's eyes turned red instantly. She is the illegitimate daughter of the Chen family. When she was taken back to the Chen family had gone bankrupt. She didn't enjoy any glory and wealth at all, so what she cares about most is her own life experience. But my brother told me that girls must be independent and have their own careers. I have always remembered what my brother said and dare not relax for a moment. Chen Nanyue finally couldn't help it and showed her weak and green tea demeanor. She wanted to irritate me. But I just lifted my eyelids and glanced at her lightly, then nodded. It's good, then you work harder. Seeing that I was indifferent, Chen Nanyue was furious. When she stood up, she deliberately stepped on Xiaoguai's tail. It jumped up suddenly and knocked over the gift box I had just opened. A crisp sound rang out. I lowered my eyes. I saw the ruby jade pendant broken into 2 pieces on the floor. Seeing the jade broken, Chen Nanyue immediately became nervous. I didn't mean it. When she was halfway through her words, she suddenly fell on the sofa after catching a glimpse of a figure walking into the living room. Oops. This scene fell into Chu Yan's eyes when he just entered the room, as if I had deliberately pushed her down. He immediately ran over to help her up and asked me harshly, "What did you do?" Before he finished speaking, he saw the jade broken into 2 pieces on the floor, and his face suddenly changed. How did this happen? Seeing that he was in a bad mood, Chen Nanyue began to pretend to be wronged and explained, "It wasn't me, it was Xiaoguai who jumped up and broke it just now, and Sister Qingyu misunderstood me just now." A pair of wet eyes. It seems aggrieved, but it's all calculated. How can I compensate Sister Qingyu with a piece of jade? My brother left me some money. I should be able to afford it, but Chen Nanyue didn't know that this ruby jade pendant was not bought. It was carved by Chu Yan himself, in the first year of marriage. Chu Yan accidentally had a car accident. He stayed in the ICU for a whole week. After all medical methods were used, the expert said that he could only wake up by his own will. I, who never believed in fate, went to the temple alone to ask for a peace charm for him. The 700 steps on a snowy day almost made me lose the feeling of my hands and feet. Fortunately, Chu Yan woke up the night he put on the peace charm, but I fell seriously ill from then on. I was afraid of cold. Chu Yan was very distressed. Later, He heard that carving a Rui jade pendant by hand could ensure safety, so he found a piece of jade and carved it carefully, but in the previous life, Chen Nanyue fainted after being frightened by exhibitionism at school. In order to comfort her, Chu Yan gave her the jade pendant full of vows. Later, he always stood behind Chen Nanyue to protect her safety. I lost his love and protection, and ended up alone and buried in the wilderness. I didn't expect that after rebirth, Chu Yan would give me the Rui jade pendant in advance because of guilt. Unfortunately, it broke before I touched it, as if it was destined by God. Chu Yan and I can only stand at the two ends of the scale, we can't walk together. As Chen Nanyue kept explaining, Chu Yan silently picked up the broken jade. After looking at it for a long time, he told Chen Nanyue to go back to the room first. I knew that he didn't intend to pursue it. Forget it, it's broken, I'll carve another one for you. Use a jade with better texture than this one, okay? His overly indifferent tone made me look unbelievable. Chu Yan, this is carved by you for me, and it was Chen Nanyue who broke it. How can you say it's broken? His eyebrows were slightly frowned, and his tone was helpless. Ayu, she just lost her relatives and has no sense of security. Can you understand? Who will understand me? My chest rose and fell violently. I couldn't help but breathe quickly. Chu Yan, you said you would carve a jade pendant for me for my safety. I've been waiting for 2 years. How long do you want me to wait? You brought Chen Nanyue back. You believed everything she said. You felt bad when she got hurt. But she is just your brother's sister. I am your wife. Why do you always wrong me and forgive her? What did I do wrong to make you treat me like this? Chu Yan, the jade is broken. It can't protect me. Can you? Can I still trust you and rely on you? My eyes were already full of tears when I finished speaking. Chu Yan's face flashed with endless regret. He hugged me tightly and coaxed me in a low voice. Of course you can trust me. I will always protect you. Ayu, you know how much I love you. In Chu Yan's arms, I slowly opened my eyes. My breathing calmed down and my tears dried. I met Chen Nanyue's vicious and jealous eyes in the distance. I raised my lips slightly. Chu Yan used to love me. But after Chen Nanyue appeared, that love gradually changed. I used to wonder why Chu Yan changed his mind. Now I don't want to pursue it. A man who changed his mind, even if only a little bit, will be like a rotten apple inside. In the end, he will be ugly. I will let Chu Yan be thrown away by me when he loves me the most and feels the most guilty about me. Everything that Chen Nanyue tried so hard to get will be destroyed by me. Neither the scumbag nor the mistress deserves to be forgiven. Out of guilt, Chu Yan has been very good to me recently. The meticulous care and care seem to have returned to the period of passionate love. But this kind of intimacy will automatically give way when Chen Nanyue appears. At lunch, Chen Nanyue held a few grains of rice. Wanting to say something but stopping, I pretended not to see it. But Chu Yan couldn't help but feel distressed. What's wrong? Chen Nanyue was like a little rabbit. After glancing at me, she retracted her neck and shook her head violently. It's okay, as if I bullied her. Chu Yan looked unhappy. If you have something to say, just say it directly, don't worry. Chen Nanyue put down her bowl and chopsticks and looked at Chu Yan expectantly. Brother Yan, I will participate in the competition next month. So I moved the easel back and practiced painting every day. But the room on the first floor is too cold, my hands are frozen, and I can't hold the brush. My action of picking up the food stagnated. It turns out that no matter what I do, important things will happen. Chen Nanyue's room on the first floor faces north. It is indeed not as warm as the second floor in autumn and winter, but there are only 3 rooms on the second floor, the master bedroom, the study and the lounge dedicated to me. I am afraid of the cold. Chu Yan specially left that room for me. In it, there is a sofa customized for me, a super large screen, Xiaogui's cat climbing frame, a toy box and a wall of jewelry display cabinets. If Chen Nanyue lives on the second floor, I have to make room for her. I didn't respond. Chu Yan hesitated for a while. I'll ask the housekeeper to add a heater for you. I've tried both the heater and the air conditioner. They make the room too dry and the paint is dry. Seeing that Chu Yan was still hesitating, Chen Nanyue lowered his head again. Brother Yan, I'd better move back to the dormitory. The studio in the school is big and has a constant temperature system. I won't cause trouble for you and sister Qingyu. This sentence completely reminded Chu Yan of his promise to his deceased brother. He put down his bowl and chopsticks, sat up straight and looked at me. Ayu, give up the lounge. After this winter, I'll have someone install floor heating in Nanyue's room and let her move back. I was a little dazed, but Chu Yan, I'm afraid of the cold too. Chu Yan frowned, quite impatient. It's just a winter, just bear with it and it will pass. When you feel cold, you can go to the 3rd floor greenhouse or bask in the sun on the bedroom balcony. Chen Rui said Nanyue was bullied at school, and I can't let her go back to school, although I had guessed that he would do this. But after it really happened, I still felt sick and uncomfortable. Chu Yan's heart and eyes were already full of Chen Nanyue. He didn't care that I would be cold and sick. I took a deep breath and tried to slow down my voice. Okay, then move. Chen Nanyue doesn't like small animals. In her previous life, she deliberately opened the window and let Xiaoguai go soon after she moved into the second floor. She pretended not to know for the whole day. It wasn't until I went home at night and couldn't find Xiaoguai, and I checked the video that I found that it had entered Chen Nanyue's room and never came out again. Under my repeated questioning, Chen Nanyue cried and said sorry. I just accidentally left the window open, and I didn't expect it to run away. I didn't have time to pay attention to Chen Nanyue, and immediately went out to look for the cat. Chu Yan accompanied me to search for the whole night. It was not until the next morning that we found its cold body on the road next to the villa area. After returning to the villa, I beat and scolded Chen Nanyue like crazy. She hid behind Chu Yan. Crying like a pear blossom in the rain, Chu Yan began to protect her. Later, he pushed me away impatiently. That's enough, the cat is dead. No matter how much you beat and scold it, it's useless. I looked at Chu Yan in disbelief. I didn't understand how he could say such cold words when he had raised Xiaoguai with me for 2 years, but he didn't blame Chen Nanyue a word. It wasn't until now that I realized that he didn't even care about me. So how could he care about a cat? I didn't dare to gamble. So that afternoon, I sent Xiaoguai to Qing Fan's house. Qing Fan is my parents' adopted son. Now he is the helmsman of Cheng's. When I appeared with 2 large bags of pet supplies, he looked worried. Did you have a fight? Even if you did, you shouldn't have run away from home. I sighed. No, but I want a divorce. Did Chu Yan hit you? Qing Fan suddenly raised his voice, scaring Xiaoguai, who had just stuck his head out back into the airline box. No, brother, while comforting Xiaoguai, I picked up the key points of Chen Nanyue's story and told her again, I definitely want a divorce. It's just that Cheng and Chu's companies have many interests, so divorce is not an easy thing. Since my rebirth, I have been preparing the procedures and documents for divorce, trying my best to minimize the loss to Cheng's. I came to Qing Fan today to ask him to prepare in advance. After listening to me, Qing Fan's face turned cold. You don't have to wrong yourself for the company, I'll cover you. Divorce as soon as possible. Looking at Qing Fan's cold and hard profile, I felt mixed emotions. Suddenly hugged his arm. Thank you, brother. Qing Fan froze for a moment, then smiled and patted my head. Why are you thanking me? I leaned on Qing Fan's shoulder and wiped away my tears when he couldn't see. In my previous life, after I was kidnapped, Chu Yan refused to save me. Nanyue only has me. You still have Qing Fan. He will save you. But Qing Fan had an accident on the way to save me. I watched his car fall off the cliff, his life or death unknown. At that moment, my remaining will to survive was shattered. Even if the dagger sank into my chest, I didn't feel any pain. Since God gave me a chance to start over, I will never let the past happen again. I not only want to save myself, I also want to save Qing Fan. A month later, Chen Nanyue's painting won an award. She gave the painting to Chu Yan. She also asked him to hang it in the study so that he could see her achievements every day. Chu Yan was full of doting and agreed happily. A week later, when Chen Nanyue came back with the painting, I was about to go out. When we passed each other on the stairs, she suddenly spoke. You can clearly see that Brother Yan doesn't like you anymore. Why don't you leave him? Chen Nanyue in front of me had venom in her eyes. Where was the innocent look of a girl? I had no emotion and looked straight into her eyes. Since you like Chu Yan, why don't you dare to confess? Are you afraid that others will call you a mistress? Only those who are not loved are mistresses. Chen Nanyue rolled her eyes unscrupulously, and her provocative eyes swept across my lower abdomen. You can't have children anymore, and Brother Yan won't be with you forever. You'd better leave on your own initiative. Don't be so tactless and make people dislike you. My eyes were dark. I did leave the root of the disease when I asked for a peace amulet for Chu Yan that winter. The doctor said that I caught a cold and needed to take good care of myself. Otherwise it would be difficult to conceive. Over the years, I have never stopped taking medicine to regulate my body, but I still didn't get pregnant. Chu Yan never complained to me. I didn't know that he cared so much, and he told my privacy to Chen Nanyue as a joke. I took a deep breath, but I couldn't suppress my anger anymore. I simply raised my foot and kicked Chen Nanyue's painting down the stairs. The wooden frame fell to the floor with a bang. The canvas hooked the railing and tore a long slit. Chen Nanyue's eyes instantly turned red, and she raised her hands to fight with me, but she was half a head shorter than me, and she didn't keep the fitness habit as well as me. I quickly distanced myself from her and pushed her aside. Hiss! Chen Nanyue hit the wall. When she got up, her entire right arm was in an unnatural drooping position. My arm is broken. It hurts so much. My arm is broken. I watched Chen Nanua screaming and crying in pain while holding her arm with cold eyes. There was no pity in my heart. I cursed, "You deserve it," and then left without looking back. This day, Chu Yan called me 18 times and sent me dozens of WeChat messages. I ignored them all, until I got home in the evening. I found that Chu Yan had sent away the housekeeper and the servants. In the huge living room, I stood alone on the opposite side of Chu Yan and Chen Nanue. His eyes were filled with anger and his voice was low. "Ayu, apologize to Nanue." I sneered and asked him, "What are you apologizing for?" Chu Yan frowned and walked forward, pointing at Chen Nanue, whose eyes were already red from crying on the sofa, and was furious. "You destroyed her painting and pushed her down and injured her arm. Shouldn't you apologize?" I was neither humble nor arrogant. "Do you believe everything she said? Have you seen the surveillance video?" When the situation was tense, Chen Nanue suddenly spoke. "The surveillance video is broken." Facing Chen Nanue's determined eyes, I slowly spoke. "Chen Nanue, you pretended to be wronged after you found out there was no surveillance video, thinking that Chu Yan would believe whatever you said, right? But let me guess. You didn't tell him why we were arguing, right?" Chen Nanue shuddered. Just as she was about to explain, she heard Chu Yan's impatient voice. "You don't have to scare her. Apologize to her." I looked at Chu Yan, who had a cold face, and narrowed my eyes slightly. "Chu Yan, why don't you ask about the cause and effect? And you believe everything she said? It was obviously she who provoked me first. You should ask her." Chu Yan raised his voice, his eyes full of disbelief. "Qing Yu, do you mean to say that she deliberately provoked you, so she deserved to be hurt? Open your eyes and take a look. That was a painting she stayed up all night to paint for a whole month. She couldn't throw it away. She is a painter. How could she bet her future and dislocate her entire arm? You made her hurt. Is it difficult for you to apologize?" I took a deep breath and stared at Chu Yan. Then, "I froze for several hours in the snow to save you and almost lost my fertility. Do I deserve it?" Chu Yan's face was pale. "What did you say?" I exhaled and pointed at Chen Nanue, who looked aggrieved on the sofa. "Chu Yan, she said you don't love me anymore. She said I can't have children, and it's shameless to stay with you, but this is my privacy. If you didn't say it yourself, how could she know?" Chu Yan's eyes flashed with regret and unnaturalness. He didn't dare to look me in the eye, but just lowered his head and lowered his voice. "Ayu, I was wrong. I'm sorry." Silence for a long time. Chu Yan raised his head again. "But let's put it one way or the other. I apologize to you, and you should also apologize to Nanyu. After all, you hurt her more and almost ruined her future." Chu Yan wanted to say, "Chen Nanyu just said a fact," but I almost made her unable to pick up a paintbrush again. How ridiculous. He is my husband, but he didn't care about my situation at all, and didn't care that rumors would hurt me. Chen Nanyu had already filled his heart, so he naturally betrayed me and hurt me. Fortunately, I don't love Chu Yan anymore. I don't feel any pain at all, only disgust. Looking at his righteous accusation, I took out the document without hesitation and threw it on the table. "Don't explain, Chu Yan. You might as well say you don't love me. Since you don't love, there's no need to be tied together. Let's divorce." Looking at the cold words, "divorce agreement" on the cover of the document, Chu Yan's face changed. "Qing Yu, I can explain your doubts, but I didn't cheat, and I don't agree to divorce." I tilted my head slightly, looked at Chu Yan, who was suppressing his anger and pretending to be calm, and suddenly laughed. "Then you let Chen Nanue move out and swear never to see her again in this life. Can you do it? What are you making a fuss about? You know Chen Rue is my best brother. How can I live up to his trust, just because of Chen Rue?" Chu Yan seemed to be suddenly deflated. He dodged his eyes, wanting to explain, but didn't know how to start. This scene made me feel particularly ironic. "Don't deceive yourself, Chu Yan. It's hard to explain that you let a girl who has no blood relationship and no status live in your home. This is a modern society. You can't think of controlling two women at the same time. I don't want to be embarrassed with you. You have no choice. I must divorce." That night, I left the divorce agreement and left. For the next week, Chu Yan didn't send me any message. I didn't sign it either. Instead, it was Chen Nanue who sent me photos every day. At first, it was the silhouette of Chu Yan in a meeting. Then it was a dinner with only her and Chu Yan. She was very proud and overjoyed. "Brother Yan is still living well without you at home. Don't come back again." I was not angry, and replied to her, "Little third sister, please sober up. Chu Yan and I have not divorced yet. I am still Mrs. Chu. And you are still the mistress who cannot be seen in the light." Chen Nanue did not reply to me. That night, she sent me another photo. It was a photo of Chu Yan's chest covered with kiss marks on the bed in the master bedroom. "You will not be Mrs. Chu soon." I did not reply. I sent this photo to Chu Yan along with a video I had saved before. That video took place on the night I went on vacation in Haicheng. Chu Yan was drunk and pushed Chen Nanue against the sofa and kissed her deeply. He thought that after he sobered up, he could delete the video and destroy the surveillance equipment, and completely destroy the body and conceal the incident. But I didn't know that after I was reborn, I made a real-time backup of the surveillance video at home. I know everything that Chu Yan and Chen Nanue did at home. After Chu Yan received Qingyu's email, he realized that things were beyond his control. He and Qingyu had been married for 3 years. They were really in love at the beginning, but every time he saw Qingyu holding Xiaoguai and calling him baby, Chu Yan's heart would always hurt. He thought Qingyu deliberately blamed him in this way. He even felt that he was a sinner. Chen Nanue appeared at this time. There were obviously many ways, but he stubbornly chose to take her home. He deceived himself and just took care of Chen Nanue on behalf of his friend as a brother. He knew Chen Nanue's little tricks, lying, framing, pretending to be weak, but when he thought of his friend's dying entrustment, he felt more distrust for Chen Nanue and was willing to protect her more. Chu Yan could see the pure love for himself in Chen Nanue's eyes. He thought he was firm enough, but he still couldn't help falling. He turned off the video at home in fear, trying to soothe his cheating heart in this way, but after seeing Qingyu's email, he realized his stupidity. Qingyu had found out a long time ago, but she was forbearing and didn't want to break up with him. If Chen Nanue hadn't deliberately provoked, maybe Qingyu wouldn't have exploded at all. This marriage can still be maintained. It's all Chen Nanue's fault, Chu Yan thought regretfully. If he had been more careful, if he had restrained Chen Nanue more. But why, Qingyu, who climbed the mountain in the snow for his safety, just because of this little problem, he suddenly stopped loving himself. It must be that Qingyu also changed his mind, so the divorce was not his fault alone. Chu Yan asked me to meet in a coffee shop not far from the Qing building. When he saw me, he was a little nervous and quickly avoided his eyes. I'm sorry, I didn't say anything, waiting for him to say the next words. After a long time, he looked up and looked at me nervously. I will let Nanue move out of the house. She is Chenrue's only relative. I will give her a sum of money so that she will have no worries in her life. I promise that I will never contact her again. Can you forgive me for doing this? I suddenly realized that it was not surprising that Chu Yan liked Chen Nanue. They both had a common strange brain circuit, and they were so stupid that it was unreasonable. I sighed and my eyes fell on the wedding ring on his left ring finger. Chu Yan, do you still remember your wedding vows? Chu Yan was stunned for a moment and pulled his tie irritably. Chu Yan and I were in a free love relationship. At the wedding, he promised to stay together for life and never betray. Now he broke it with his own hands. Chu Yan, you can't tolerate sand in your eyes, and you won't buy a rotten apple. If I betrayed first, you would have abandoned me long ago. Chu Yan's breathing stagnated. Sign it as soon as possible. It will be good for both you and me. Otherwise, if Chen Nanue makes a fuss, I don't know what she will do. You are a big CEO, you can disappear by patting your butt. Chen Nanue hasn't graduated yet. It's hard to say whether she can get a diploma. I was about to leave after I said that, but Chu Yan grabbed my wrist. He retracted his gaze from the window, his tone low and cold. You want a divorce? Is it because of Chen Nanue, or because of him? Who? I turned back subconsciously and happened to see Qing Fan pushing open the door of the coffee shop, walking towards me anxiously. It was ironic. I struggled to break free. I slapped Chu Yan with all my strength. Chu Yan, don't think that everyone is as disgusting as you. Then I turned around and was held in the arms of Qing Fan, who came late. He took a deep look at Chu Yan. I protected me in his hateful eyes and left quickly. 2 days later, I received the divorce agreement signed by Chu Yan. That afternoon, I took a professional moving team back to the villa where I had lived for 3 years and moved all my things away. From expensive haute couture dresses and jewelry, from small things like plastic refrigerator magnets bought from roadside stalls, I would rather take them back and throw them away than leave them to Chu Yan and Chen Nanue. Later, the housekeeper told me that when Chen Nanue went back home at night and saw the living room that looked like it had been robbed, as well as the empty jewelry cabinet and wardrobe, she screamed loudly. She felt wronged. She cried and sat on the sofa waiting for Chu Yan to come back. But Chu Yan didn't know if it was intentional, but he went on a business trip and didn't go home for a whole week. Shortly after the divorce, I moved into my new home in Nanching with Xiaoguai. When I was lying in the rocking chair with Xiaoguai in my arms and basking in the sun, Qing Fan came out of the kitchen wearing an apron. She served me a bowl of soup that had been simmered for 3 hours on low heat. I just took a bite and my eyebrows dropped. Looking at the back of Qing Fan helping me organize the bookshelf in the distance, I suddenly remembered what Chu Yan said in the coffee shop. I couldn't help but fall into thoughts. When my parents picked up Qing Fan, he was still a baby in swaddling clothes. since they couldn't find his relatives for several months after calling the police. And they couldn't bear to let him go to the welfare home to suffer. They adopted him and treated him as their own son from then on. There was a word Fan embroidered on his bib, so my parents named him Chung Fan. When Chung Fan was in the first year of high school, the Fan family in Haicheng came to look for him. They said he was the youngest son of the Fan family in Haicheng. That winter, Chung Fan refused to leave for Haicheng. He insisted on staying at home with us after the spring festival before leaving. He left for 6 years. The day he came back happened to be the engagement party for Chu Yan and me. Looking at my brother who I hadn't seen for many years and was a little unfamiliar, I really wanted to hold his arm, but I didn't dare to get close. My parents had planned to retire and travel around the world a long time ago. Unfortunately, I don't like running a company, so they have never been able to do so. After knowing that Chung Fan would not leave, they completely became hands-off managers and handed over the company and me to Chung Fan. In the following years, I gradually regained the closeness I had with Chung Fan when I was a child. He was very good to me, he spoiled me, and even gave up his life for me. I never thought that Chung Fan would have feelings for me that were different from those of a brother and sister. After all, he was the most favored youngest son of a century-old family, and there was no need for him to like me despite his crazy words. But Chu Yan's words really made me distressed. I thought for a while and said lightly, "Brother, your craftsmanship is so good, it would be a pity if you don't find someone to appreciate it." Chung Fan didn't raise his head, and his voice was tired. "Didn't you just appreciate it? But I can't appreciate it every day. You are still half a year older than me. And you should find a girlfriend." Halfway through the words, Chung Fan glanced at me coldly. I immediately lowered my head and my voice became smaller and smaller. Seeing my cowardly appearance, Chung Fan sighed. "You are urging me to get married right after my marriage ended, Chung Yu. Are you serious?" I pursed my lips and whispered, "I just hope you can be happy." "I will be happy." Across a long distance, Chung Fan looked straight at me. "You don't have to test me, I have my plan. I will be happy, but it's not time yet." After saying that, he looked away and turned into the kitchen. I blinked a few times and suddenly felt complicated. I complained to Xiaoguai silently. "He is so hard to understand." In the second month after the divorce, I have adapted to the independent life of one person and one cat. Chung Fan occasionally comes to feed, but keeps a frequency of not disturbing or interfering. It's as if nothing happened that afternoon. In contrast, Chu Yan is not doing well, living in the same circle. Even if I don't take the initiative to ask, I can know a little about his news. After he came home from a business trip, he gave Chen Nanue a sum of money and asked her to move out of the house. Chen Nanue refused and had a big temper with him. Unexpectedly, Chu Yan's attitude was unusually firm. It was as if the person who once had only Chen Nanue in his heart and eyes was not himself. Chen Nanue was still unwilling to move out of the villa. She waited at the door of the villa and went to Chu Yan's company to block it. He even broke into the conference room despite being stopped, causing Chu Yan to lose a large order of considerable amount. When I heard the news, I suddenly felt that Chen Nanue at this moment was like me in my previous life. Because I didn't believe that Chu Yan would change his heart, I turned myself into an angry bird and crashed into the whirlpool. Broken to pieces, the gain did not make up for the loss. Chu Yan was equally cruel to Chen Nanue, not even giving her a chance to meet. The crazy Chen Nanue vented all her grievances on me. Listening to the dirty insults on the phone, I closed my eyes. "But Chen Nanue, did Chu Yan say he loved you?" The curse stopped abruptly. After 2 seconds, a beep sounded. I have seen the surveillance at home. When Chu Yan faced Chen Nanue, he never said anything beyond the rules, and did not take the initiative to make a decent promise. He was like a traitor who was determined to win, enjoying manipulating Chen Nanue's love for him. This is the case with Chen Nanue. This is also the case with me. Otherwise, Chu Yan would not have blatantly brought Chen Nanue home, testing me again and again, and pulling my bottom line. Chu Yan is a complete scumbag. Chu Yan has approached me recently, through work, or through friends, but I rejected them all, until this time. I received an invitation from Chu Yan to the charity dinner of the foundation. The Chu Foundation was organized by Chu Yan in my name after he recovered from his illness. It was also the project I spent the most effort to build after getting married, so I couldn't refuse. That night, he walked through the crowd and walked straight towards me. When he came to me, I realized that he was tortured by Chen Nanue and was very haggard. Even the custom-made suit couldn't cover the fatigue around him. He said, "Ayu, I have asked Nanue to move out. Can you give me a chance to start over?" I didn't understand Chu Yan's train of thought, so I took a half step back to distance myself. "Chu Yan, I don't like you anymore. We're divorced. There's no point in saying these things anymore." Chu Yan disagreed. He wanted to say something else, but there was a quarrel outside the door. It turned out to be Chen Nanue. Because there was no invitation letter, she fought with the guard who stopped her. Xu Yan's face darkened instantly, and he ran towards her. I don't know how he comforted Chen Nanue. 10 minutes later, Xu Yan came back alone. He walked towards me again, but was stopped by the staff halfway and told that it was time to go on stage to give a speech. Xu Yan asked me to wait for him, but my eyelids kept twitching, and I was not comfortable. I left the banquet hall before he finished his speech. I didn't expect to meet Chen Nanue in the underground garage. Her hair was loose. The hem of her lace skirt had been stepped on by the security guard several times just now. She looked like a poor rag doll, but it made me feel scared. Qingyu, I want you to die. As long as you die, Brother Yan will only love me. She pulled out a knife from her back and rushed towards me screaming. I ran away. I ran and called for help, but I stepped on the hem of my skirt at a corner and sprained my ankle. I lost my balance and fell on the stairs. The next second, Chen Nanue chased me. I screamed and curled myself up. There was no expected pain. A few drops of blood wiped my ears and dripped on the ground. I looked back and saw Xu Yan standing above me. The dagger penetrated from the back and stabbed out of the chest. In the emergency room, Xu Yan had a long dream. It was like being injected with the memories of himself in another parallel time and space. In that world, Xu Yan completely broke his original oath, falling in love with Chen Nanue, betraying Qingyu. He knew the bad nature of Chen Nanue, but he indulged her blindly, making Qingyu sad again and again. When Qingyu was kidnapped, he chose to save Chen Nanue without hesitation. The reason was simple. Chen Nanue only had him. Qingyu had Qingfan to save, but he didn't expect that Qingfan would have a car accident on the way to save Qingyu and fall off a cliff. The kidnappers were afraid that the matter would get out of hand and cause trouble, so they killed Qingfan in advance. Leaving Qingyu alone in the wilderness, after losing Qingyu, Xu Yan suddenly felt at a loss. He didn't seem to love Chen Nanue that much, especially after discovering that the kidnapping was deliberately designed by Chen Nanue and Qingfan's car was tampered by Chen Nanue. Xu Yan felt disgusted with Chen Nanue. He was like schizophrenia, and turned back to Xu Yan who only loved Qingyu. Collect evidence and send Chen Nanue to prison. The day Chen Nanue was taken away, she screamed and accused, "You made me like this, you betrayed Qingyu. It's all your fault." Xu Yan suddenly woke up like being slapped in the face. He realized later that he was the instigator. Qingyu died because of his betrayal. Xu Yan found it hard to accept the reality. After spending 2 nights with his eyes open, Xu Yan swallowed a whole bottle of sleeping pills. Beep, the heartbeat stopped. Beep beep, the heartbeat resumed. Chen Nanue was arrested on the day of the incident. Xu Yan was injured in a vital part and was in a coma for a week before waking up. I went to the hospital to visit Xu Yan the day after he woke up. Qingfan and I were together. Xu Yan frowned slightly when he saw him. His tone was calm and humble. "Can I talk to Qingyu alone?" Qingfan saw me nod and turned to leave. There were only Xu Yan and I in the ward. He looked at me with a strange and familiar look. After a long time, he squeezed out an ugly smile. "I'm sorry, Qingyu. I didn't mean to not choose you." I was suddenly stunned. I heard him say, "It must have hurt when the dagger pierced your heart." My face turned pale in an instant, and I took 2 steps back towards the door. "You're back too." Xu Yan didn't say anything, just looked at me and nodded. I didn't ask why Xu Yan died in the previous life. I didn't care. In the past and present lives, he deserved the punishment. Perhaps sensing my rejection, Xu Yan covered his eyes weakly. "I have always owed you a sincere apology, and Qingfan's share." I was puzzled. "What do you mean?" Xu Yan sighed and told me about Chen Nanue's kidnapping and damaging Qingfan's car. Perhaps he hasn't fully recovered yet. He was short of breath and coughed at the end. I stood far away, shaking uncontrollably. Seeing that I still refused to get close, he pulled out the oxygen and rolled off the bed. Then he stumbled to me and knelt down to beg. "I know you won't forgive me, but I still want to ask, if I hadn't brought Chen Nanue home, would we not have come to this point?" He was still avoiding responsibility and putting all the consequences on Chen Nanue. I felt that my chest was pressing and I couldn't breathe. And I forced myself to stay calm. I pushed his hand away. "No ifs." Then I ignored Xu Yan who was lying on the ground and couldn't get up, and immediately pushed the door and left. I found Qingfan at the end of the corridor. I dressed up. "All me brother." I quickened my pace and threw myself into his arms. Finally, I couldn't help it and cried loudly for the first time after my rebirth. That was the last time I saw Xu Yan. I heard that he has been in poor health since he was discharged from the hospital. He was depressed and had a problem with alcoholism. In just half a year, he was hospitalized 3 times. The company's performance declined, and he was impeached by the board of directors. But these things have nothing to do with me. Chung Fan picked up a small calico cat downstairs of the company. He was afraid that he couldn't raise the kitten well, so he brought it to me to raise together. He came to see me from time to time, gave me toys and cat food. He also brought my favorite snacks and cooked for me. He always took care of me appropriately. He didn't let me feel any discomfort or rejection. He didn't force me to give an answer, and he didn't take that step for a long time. Some things need to be handed over to time. We don't need to rush.